The Dominican Republic is often introduced through beaches, resorts, and turquoise water, but that image only captures a small part of the country. It is one of the most historically important places in the Americas, a nation shaped by indigenous societies, European colonization, revolutions, occupations, dictatorships, and rapid modern growth. Located in the Caribbean Sea, it sits on the island of Hispaniola, sharing the island with Haiti. This shared geography has deeply influenced its politics, culture, borders, and identity. Today, the Dominican Republic is the second-largest country in the Antilles after Cuba and one of the most populous nations in the Caribbean. It is also the region's largest economy and its most visited destination. To understand the Dominican Republic, we need to look beyond the postcard image and see a country standing at the crossroads of Caribbean geography and American history. Geographically, the Dominican Republic occupies the eastern 5/8 of Hispaniola, one of the great islands of the Greater Antilles. To its west is Haiti, with which it shares a land border. To the east, across the Mona Passage, lies Puerto Rico, connected not by land but by maritime proximity and regional exchange. The country covers about 48,671 square kilometers, or 18,792 square miles, giving it enough space for mountains, valleys, dry zones, fertile plains, lakes, forests, and long coastlines. Its capital, Santo Domingo, sits on the southern coast and dominates national life. In 2024, the country had about 11.4 million people, with roughly 3.6 million living in the Santo Domingo metropolitan area. This concentration makes the capital not only a political center, but also the country's economic, cultural, and historical heart. Long before European ships appeared in the Caribbean, Hispaniola was home to indigenous peoples, including the Taino. They organized the island into 5 chiefdoms, building communities with agriculture, trade, religious practices, and political leadership. The Taino world was not empty or undeveloped, it was a complex Caribbean society adapted to the island's landscapes and sea routes. They cultivated crops, lived in organized settlements, and maintained networks across the region. This matters because the story of the Dominican Republic did not begin in 1492. European contact transformed the island violently and permanently, but it did not create its first history. The Indigenous foundation is essential to understanding Hispaniola's identity, place names, food traditions, and cultural memory. Even after conquest and demographic collapse, Taino influence remained woven into Dominican and wider Caribbean life. In 1492, Christopher Columbus landed on Hispaniola during his first voyage and claimed the island for Castile. This moment made the island one of the earliest centers of Spanish colonial power in the Americas. The colony of Santo Domingo became the first permanent European settlement in the Americas, giving the area enormous symbolic and strategic importance. From here, Spanish institutions, expeditions, religious orders, and colonial administration expanded into the wider region. Santo Domingo became a testing ground for empire. It was where Europeans built some of the earliest colonial structures in the New World and where systems of labor, conversion, and extraction took root. The colonial zone of Santo Domingo still reflects this era, containing the first cathedral, palace, monastery, and fortress built in the Americas. These buildings are not just monuments, they are evidence of how early the island was pulled into global history. Hispaniola's political geography changed dramatically in 1697, when Spain recognized French control over the western third of the island. That western colony eventually became Haiti after one of the most important revolutions in world history. In 1804, Haiti emerged as an independent state, born from a successful revolt against slavery and French colonial rule. The eastern side, which would become the Dominican Republic, followed a different path under Spanish influence, but the two halves of the island remained deeply connected. This shared island became one of only 2 islands in the Caribbean divided between 2 sovereign states, the other being Saint Martin. The Dominican Republic's relationship with Haiti has often been shaped by proximity, migration, conflict, trade, and contrasting colonial legacies. The border is not just a line on a map, it represents centuries of overlapping histories. The Dominican road to independence was not simple or immediate. In November 1821, a group of Dominicans deposed the Spanish governor and declared independence from Spain. But that first independence was short-lived. In February 1822, Haiti annexed the eastern part of the island, bringing the entire island under Haitian rule for 22 years. Dominican independence finally came in 1844, after the Dominican War of Independence. This struggle helped define a separate Dominican national identity, shaped by language, institutions, religion, and historical experience. Yet independence did not bring instant stability. The young republic faced political divisions, economic weakness, and pressure from both within and outside its borders. The events of 1844 became a central national memory because they marked not only the creation of a state, but also the assertion of a distinct political community on Hispaniola. The decades after independence were turbulent. Over the next 72 years, the Dominican Republic experienced civil wars, failed invasions from Haiti, and even a brief return to Spanish colonial status. That return ended during the Dominican Restoration War of 1863 to 1865, when Dominicans permanently ousted Spanish rule. This period reveals how fragile sovereignty could be in the 19th century Caribbean. Small nations often faced foreign pressure, internal factionalism, debt, and military struggle. For the Dominican Republic, the Restoration War became another defining national moment because it confirmed that independence was not a one-time event. It had to be defended repeatedly. The country's political life in this era was shaped by regional leaders, competing elites, and the challenge of building stable institutions in a world where powerful empires still influenced Caribbean affairs. The 20th century brought another layer of upheaval. After a period of United States occupation, Rafael Trujillo rose to power and ruled as dictator from 1930 until his assassination in 1961. His regime was authoritarian, deeply personalist, and central to modern Dominican history. Trujillo controlled political life, shaped the economy, promoted a cult of personality, and used state violence to maintain power. His rule left lasting marks on institutions, land ownership, nationalism, and public memory. After his death, the country entered a difficult transition. Juan Bosch was elected president in 1962, but he was overthrown in a military coup in 1963. The Dominican Civil War of 1965 followed, reflecting intense conflict over democracy, reform, and political direction. This era shows how the country's modern democracy emerged through instability, not a smooth constitutional path. After the Civil War, Joaquin Balaguer became one of the dominant political figures in Dominican life. He ruled from 1966 to 1978 and later returned to power from 1986 to 1996. His governments are often described as authoritarian or semi-authoritarian, combining elections with strong central control and political pressure. Yet the late 20th century also saw the gradual strengthening of representative democracy. Since 1996, the Dominican Republic has moved toward more competitive democratic politics, with regular elections and a broader public sphere. This does not mean all problems disappeared. Like many democracies, it has faced challenges involving inequality, corruption, migration, and institutional trust. But the shift since the 1990s is significant. After centuries of colonial rule, occupation, dictatorship, and conflict, the country developed a more stable democratic framework for political competition. Economically, the Dominican Republic is a Caribbean heavyweight. It has the largest economy in the Caribbean and the seventh largest in Latin America. Between 1992 and 2018, it recorded an average real GDP growth rate of 5.3%, one of the fastest in the Western Hemisphere. In 2014 and 2015, growth reached 7.3% and 7%, respectively, among the highest rates in the region. This growth has been driven by construction, manufacturing, tourism, and mining. The country is also home to Pueblo Viejo, one of the world's largest gold mines by production. In 2015, Dominican gold production reached 31 metric tons. These figures show a country that is not only a tourism destination, but also an industrial, commercial, and resource-based economy. Growth, however, also raises questions about inequality, environmental impact, and who benefits most from development. Tourism is one of the Dominican Republic's most visible global industries. It is the most visited destination in the Caribbean, attracting travelers to beaches, resorts, golf courses, historic sites, mountains, and cultural festivals. Places like Punta Cana are internationally known, but the country's appeal is much broader than resort tourism. Santo Domingo offers colonial architecture and urban culture. The interior offers mountain landscapes and rural communities. Coastal regions combine fishing towns, ports, and beach economies. Tourism brings jobs, foreign exchange, and infrastructure, but it also creates challenges. Resort development can strain water supplies, reshape local communities, and make parts of the economy dependent on global travel trends. The Dominican tourism story is therefore a story of opportunity and tension, a country marketing paradise while managing the social and environmental costs of being the Caribbean's top destination. The Dominican Republic is also geographically remarkable. It contains Pico Duarte, the tallest mountain peak in the Caribbean, and Lake Enriquillo, the Caribbean's largest lake and lowest point. This means the country contains dramatic elevation contrasts within a relatively compact island space. Its average temperature is about 26 degrees Celsius, or 78.8 degrees Fahrenheit, but climate and ecosystems vary widely depending on altitude, rainfall, and region. This diversity helps explain the country's biological richness and agricultural variety. It also gives the Dominican Republic a landscape identity unlike the flat tropical stereotype often imagined by outsiders. From colonial Santo Domingo to high mountain trails, from dry lake basins to lush coastlines, the country combines history, ecology, and strategic geography. The Dominican Republic is not just a Caribbean vacation spot. It is a nation that helped shape the Americas and continues to define the region's future. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.